Welcome to your virtual CFO coach. I'm your host, Leah Torbert, founder and CEO of Harrington Strategic Partners. I've spent my entire career working in the startup world, scaling businesses to multi-7 and 8 figures. I built this podcast to share all of that knowledge with you and make your path to success shorter and easier. Tune in each week as I cover topics including financial analysis, cash flow management, holistic strategy, mindset, and more. Now for today's episode. Cash flow is the lifeblood of all businesses, but cash flow management is not a one-size-fits-all type of solution. In today's episode, I'm going to break down 3 cash flow challenges for service-based businesses and how you can proactively address them to achieve success faster. So let's jump right in. Service-based businesses are harder to forecast because your products are intangible services with somewhat unpredictable demand patterns and are usually tailored to specific client needs. To further complicate the issue, there are a number of different ways to charge for your services, each with its own challenges. And because of this, cash flow is often erratic because services are time-based. So you have hourly billing, where your income is going to fluctuate based off of the number of billable hours that you or your team members have. You have project-based billing, where your income is going to fluctuate based on the size of the project and the payment milestones that you've negotiated for the project with your clients. You have commission-based billing, where your income is going to fluctuate based on the timing and the size of successful sales. You also have subscriptions and renewals. So subscriptions can provide recurring revenue to stabilize your cash flow, but it can also be hard to predict growth as your clients join and leave your subscriptions at will. And depending on the systems that you have in place, it may be difficult to track the reasons why this is happening. Another factor that affects cash flow for your service business is managing upfront costs and delayed payments. Unless you negotiate an upfront retainer or deposit for the project, you have to cover all of the costs ahead of time to complete the work. It's your labor, your materials, your office overhead. If you have travel costs, all of those things need to be paid for up front. And then there's the issue of collecting the payment. It's rare that your client will swipe a credit card the minute you're done providing the service, so there's still more time to wait until the cash comes in, even for your good payers. It's all part of the cash cycle. How long it takes from the time you start working on a project and incurring costs, and the time it takes to collect the money owed, and the time it takes for you to pay your vendors. It's all different pieces of the same puzzle. And lastly, there's a huge risk because your business is entirely dependent on client relationships. If your clients aren't raving fans, you'll be vulnerable to cost-cutting initiatives and competition wooing them away from you. If you lose a couple of key clients through competition or shifting market conditions, you could be in serious trouble if your client base is too concentrated. But the good news is that these don't have to be challenges for your business. You can implement effective cash flow management systems that work to minimize these challenges and keep your business running smoothly. This is part of the cultivated success blueprint that I help my clients create to fast track their business goals and reach success faster. Here are 5 strategies that you can use to get started improving your cash flow today. Strategy number 1, service stacking to stabilize cash flow. With cash flow, timing is everything. So I want you to think about the different revenue streams that you have in your business. When do you collect payment for each of them? And how do they work together to stabilize your cash flow? What I mean by that is, do you only have recurring revenue, or do you have recurring revenue plus project-based, or recurring revenue plus hourly-based? When do all of those different revenue streams actually bring cash in? So you can look at the timing of all of the money coming into your business and see how you can leverage that to stabilize your cash flow and make sure that you can cover expenses. If you have a subscription model, what are you doing to increase retention while you're working on growing new subscriptions? It's much easier to continue charging a client that's already on board, that's already familiar with your services, and it's much cheaper to keep them engaged versus going out and finding new clients to subscribe to your service, whatever that may be. And so paying attention to retention techniques can also be very important to stabilize your cash flow. Is there something that you can do to tweak your pricing models to increase your cash flow and expand your client base? So think about things like potentially increasing the cost of your subscription. Or maybe you're charging hourly right now, but you want to move to a more project-based or value-based billing instead of I worked 5 hours and I get paid $150 per hour. Maybe look from a value perspective. What is the value that you're bringing to your client, and what is that worth versus the hourly rate that a lot of us service-based businesses start out at? And then thinking about project revenue, if you're heavily focused on the project side, what can you do to bridge the gap between milestone payments? If you have long-term projects that are going out over months, quarters, potentially years, you're going to have long periods of time in between those cash payments coming in. And so you need to think about how to bring in additional revenue from different sources to try to bridge the gap and make it easier for you to budget and forecast your cash flow. Instead of thinking about all of these different revenue streams separately, weave them together to provide predictable cash flow. If one stumbles a little bit, the others should be able to pick up the slack in the short term. The second strategy is proactive invoicing and payment policies. You want to make it as easy as possible for your clients to pay you. This sounds simple, but it is often overlooked part of the process. You must be very clear with your clients what your expectations are, but you must also understand what they need to get you paid, especially if you have corporate or government clients. Do they need a PO number, a project number, or something else that needs to be referenced on the invoice? Are there specific documents or approvals that need to be submitted before or along with the invoice to get approved? And then where should those invoices go? I've seen many times where that question hasn't been asked in the onboarding process. Invoices get sent to the purchasing guy and then they never get to accounting. And so accounting doesn't even know that those bills exist and that they need to be paid. And so making sure that they're getting sent to the right person is very important. If possible, look at the systems that you have in place and see what part of this you can automate. If you can update your invoicing templates or set up something specific to this client in your billing system that makes sure that all of these things are either attached, automatically entered on the invoice, or there's at least some kind of prompt to remind the person that's doing the billing that these things need to be done, then you can do all of the hard work on the front end to make sure that the client has everything they need to get you paid. And then to assist with that payment, give them options. Are they able to pay by wire or ACH? And if so, what have you done to make sure that you're set up at your bank to accept wire or ACH payments? And then what do you need to do on your client side to make sure that they have the information they need to pay you that way? And if credit cards are more convenient for payment, set up an agreement with your client to sign off on deliverables, and then keep a credit card on file to process payment. So once your client has said, yes, we're good, go ahead, this project deliverable is done, you can go ahead and charge it. You don't have to wait on someone else to do it. Now, you could have a lot of different ways that you could optimize the invoicing and payment process in your business. Every business is unique. You can go through and map out the ways that work for your business so that you can get paid faster, reduce the friction, and make it easy for your clients to pay you. Strategy number 3, I want to talk about proactive budgeting and forecasting. Now, I mentioned earlier, budgeting and forecasting can be more challenging for service-based businesses, but that doesn't mean that it's impossible to get it done. You can easily plug in cash inflows for existing projects, recurring revenue, and your fixed costs. And then if you haven't calculated your variable costs already, you can go back through, do those calculations, and then plug them into your budget and your forecast as well. And then over time, work on refining your projections based off of real-time payment data. What I mean by that is think about your payment terms. So you may have clients that are on a net 7, net 15, net 30-day payment terms. But if your clients pay in 45 days instead of the expected 30, and you build your budget and cash flow forecasting based off of net 30, then your cash flow projections are always going to be off. You're always going to be short on cash because you're expecting payments to come in on time, and this client doesn't pay on time. Ultimately, you may choose to let that client go over time if they can't improve their payment time, but while you're working through those decisions, you can adjust your cash flow projections and your budget to reflect what they're actually doing, so you can determine whether you're willing to continue moving forward with that, but also make business decisions based off of when the cash is actually expected to come in versus when you thought they were going to pay. The forecasting side can be a little tricky depending on how you've set up your revenue streams, but with the right data, you can create some reasonable expectations and refine them over time. The key piece here is that your budget and forecast are living documents. They aren't something that you do at the beginning of the year and ignore until the next annual planning meeting. They're key cash flow tools that you use to measure your revenue and expenses and make sure you have ample cash to take advantage of opportunities when they come. Strategy number 4 is to work on maintaining strong client relationships. Because service businesses are all about relationships, building your cultivated success blueprint to support those relationships is critical. It's not enough to provide excellent service. I mean, really today, that's the bare minimum just to keep the client. So you need to think about ways to improve every touch point that your client has with you. Do you and the client share the same expectations of what's going to happen and when? Is there a clear communication path when issues do arise? Are you timely and responsive when your clients have an issue? Do you proactively communicate potential challenges and address them before they become a problem, or do you wait until something blows up and you have to deal with it? Is your client's experience personalized so they feel like you understand and appreciate them? Do you actively seek feedback and use it to improve your processes? And are you communicating often or just when there's an issue or you want to make another sale? You can take the ideas that come from answering these questions to incorporate a more client-focused activity base into your strategic plan so that it becomes second nature to your business. It'll be top of mind for you. It'll be top of mind for your employees. It'll be top of mind when making requests from vendors. And it'll be top of mind when communicating things to your clients so that they understand that they are important to your business and that you truly appreciate them being with you and working with you for the long term. And then the 5th strategy is to build adequate cash reserves. Part of your long-term strategy needs to be building a cash reserve to fall back on when cash flow issues pop up and replenishing it as quickly as possible once that issue has been resolved. Now, there's a lot of debate out there on how much you should have saved. If you don't save enough, you could be in serious trouble, but if you keep too much in reserve, you could miss out on opportunities to grow if you're not flexible in understanding what that cash can be used for. Plus, you have to consider your industry's volatility and your clients' demand patterns. 3 to 6 months is a good place to start. This will ensure that you can continue operations through short-term lean times while you're working to improve the cash flow in the long term. Build the savings into your budget as part of your cash management plan. If your bank has the option, go ahead and set up automatic transfers so you don't use the funds for operations accidentally. Strategies like these are key components of the Cultivated Success Blueprint that my clients and I developed to scale their businesses. You take away the guesswork with a simple, holistic cash flow management system that's tailored to your specific goals and doesn't take tons of time to manage. It's easy to update and pivot as business needs change. The Cultivated Success Blueprint is one of the 3 pillars of my cash flow ignition methodology. The other 2 pillars, your decisive CEO mindset and the cohesive cash flow system, work together with the Cultivated Success Blueprint to build a business that can generate sustainable cash flow in the long term and change course as needed to achieve your goals. With the decisive CEO mindset, you're in control. You're confidently calling the shots, making decisions that pave the way for your growth and success. Analysis paralysis, gone. Feeling isolated and overwhelmed, a thing of the past. You know exactly what you need to make critical decisions, and you have a support team in place to help you manage the stress of being a CEO and make taking care of yourself a priority. With your cohesive cash flow system, your operations are optimized to generate consistent cash flow, increase your profits, and remove the kindling that's causing all of the fires that you spend so much time putting out every day. You're going to have fewer meetings, fewer headaches, and more time for you to spend however you please in the business or outside the business. Your cultivated success blueprint is the roadmap to achieving that success. You're intentionally mapping out how you'll achieve your goals and implementing tools and measurements to support your growth and success. No more wondering what the next steps are or finding out too late that you veered off course. It's all laid out in your cultivated success blueprint, so you know what to do and when to fast track your success. If you're interested in learning how my cash flow ignition methodology can ignite your cash flow engine, I invite you to book your cash flow optimization call with me today. On this call, we'll tackle your immediate cash flow concerns and outline actionable steps for quick improvement. I'll walk you through the cash flow ignition methodology, explaining how it accelerates results, and if it resonates with you, I'll share some options post-call on how we can work together so you can achieve success faster. I'll drop a link down in the show notes so you can click directly from the episode, or you can head on over to my website, harringtonstrategicpartners.com/contact. Thanks for listening to today's podcast. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please share with your network and leave a review so our podcast can have a greater impact. If you have any comments or additional topics you'd like discussed on the show, let me know. Before you go, connect with me on LinkedIn and let's keep the conversation going.